can we just take a step back from constantly like looking for the finish line, because this will continue to impact our lives.
Hello, supers! Welcome back to Paano Ba To? For this month, we are doing another special series. Paano ba to sa pandemyang ito? They say we have to learn to live with the virus, and ito na talaga ang ating bagong normal. So, let's equip ourselves with the tools and the mindsets that we need so that we can move forward in the months to come more mentally strong. And for this episode, let's talk about paano ba tayo hindi mauubos sa pandemyang ito. I invited clinical psychologist Dr. Joanna Herrera for this conversation. Welcome back to Paano Ba To, Doc Javi.
Thank you so much, Bianca. Always a pleasure. Really, I enjoy our chats. So I'm happy to be back.
Thank you again for saying yes. The topic for today, I guess, is really helping everyone manage our mindset in the months to come, because I think none of us expected this to be as long as it has been.
Yes. It's like a marathon without a finish line.
Oh my gosh, visually, that's exactly
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
So I guess I wanted to discuss today with you, paano tayo hindi mauubos to see this to the end. So a buzz term, I guess, this past year has been surge capacity. And I guess it has something to do with that. Feeling burnt out, feeling depleted, or even not to that level, but that other term, languishing. It's somewhere there. So how do we manage this surge capacity?
Surge capacity is our innate capacity to adapt to threat and challenges. Dr. Ann Maston, she's an American psychologist who has been talking a lot about this, and she studied resilience for 40 years. So she talks about surge capacity as our innate capacity to adapt to threats. It's physiological and psychological. It's part of our evolutionary heritage as human beings, is survival. I mean, that's a good thing. You know, our ancestors have survived because of this surge capacity. Our body, when it detects stress, it cascades all of these different functions that allow us to mobilize our energies to meet that stress or that threat. But that's meant to be a temporary situation. So surge capacity is limited, and it's something that needs to be renewed and replenished. So with a prolonged situation like this, like the pandemic, we can't just rely on surge capacity. The surge capacity has to be renewed again and again. So it's like a bank account. You can't just keep drawing out from it without filling it.
So surge capacity, it's safe to say we've been running on it longer than our bodies can take it.
Yes.
Are there signs that you know that, like, before it's too late, before you deplete that capacity?
Yeah, we're always fluctuating between our window of tolerance, our calm and safe zone, and our fight or flight, which is our, when we're reacting to stress, right? We're mobilizing energy, and when we're in our freeze zone, parang shutting down because we're just so overwhelmed. So being able to track where we are is really important. We know where in our safe zone, in our optimal zone, we feel connected to people. We feel we can give empathy to ourselves and to others. When we can feel creative, we can think clearly, we can access our wise judgment. When we start to feel irritable, restless, anxious, like when we start to notice like our thoughts are gearing towards worrying a lot, those are some telltale signs that we're exceeding our surge capacity, that we're depleting it.
Work from home situations add a lot of stress, right? From before that we were used to going out, and then that's work. When you go home, it's home. But now it's all a blur, right? And we always hear yung parang, no, push through it, push through it, push through it. So am I hearing you say that push through it shouldn't always apply? That when we sort of feel like, the signs that you said, you're irritable, you feel overwhelmed, parang you need to give yourself a break.
Exactly. I mean, pushing through it isn't always the wisest path forward. Sometimes pausing is the wisest path forward. That's our negative capability. Sometimes pulling ourselves back, because pushing through it can be a form of hyper engagement. It's like, sometimes it can also be an addiction to productivity, because we want to be in control of a situation that we really can't be in control of. So the pushing through it can just deplete us, and it can also lead us to, I don't know, act and make decisions that are not very efficient, and in a way it can also be hurtful to us and to others.
Yeah. So do you mean it's possible that you are a highly functioning person every day and then one day you just shut down? That's possible.
It's possible when we ignore our needs, when we ignore our emotional needs, we ignore our mental needs, our physical needs, and sometimes our culture has a way of reinforcing the productivity, the overfunctioning, until we reach a point when the only option we have is to stop because the body just can't go any further.
Yeah.
Or our mental capacity can't go any further.
So pause, and it's okay to pause sometimes. Another point that I wanted to discuss with you is the term pandemic flux syndrome. So it's a term that we came across, which is actually the reason why I reached out to Doc Jabi, which is basically about changing our mindset from like one day this will all be over to this will be quite some time pa of ups and downs and ups and downs. Can you tell us about this?
I have to admit, at the beginning of the pandemic, Bianca, and maybe it was the same for you. I mean, my mindset was, oh, this is going to be over in 2 months, 3 months,
Yeah, definitely.
I booked a vacation, and my travel agent was saying, should I cancel this? And I said, no, because, let's see what happens. That was also my expectation. I think as we saw the bigger picture, we realized that, and what scientists are telling us is this pandemic is going to go on for years. I mean, of course, it's going to subside at some point, but we will have to deal with it for years. And sometimes some people say even decades. Mindset of flux is about facing down reality. In the case of this pandemic, the metaphor that we started with, about this marathon that has no clear finish line. I think it's just accepting that that's the path we're on, and can we, just take a step back from constantly like looking for the finish line, because this will continue to impact our lives. But it's not like a typhoon. We're used to a typhoon where it's over after a few days. And even if we do disaster relief and operations, we know there's a timeline. This situation doesn't have that. It's accepting the instability and uncertainty.
Yeah, and this is not to say like it's very doomsday. I think when I read this article and listened to the podcast of Brene Brown with Amy Cuddy, who wrote about this pandemic flux syndrome, it sort of changed my mindset in that instead of thinking of it as gloom and doom na, oh my gosh, years pa to, it was more of like, okay, I'll equip myself, we'll get ready na, kunyari, you get your vaccines, diba? You're feeling high, you're feeling wow, positive. Yeah. And then there's that surge and the new variants, and then you feel low again. And then I'm sure in the coming months, we'll reach more people vaccinated. Then it'll be a high again. The alert levels going lower, high again. But then I think mentally, I'm already preparing myself that something might happen, either another surge, another variant. So I think that parang that was so game-changing for me in preparing myself para hindi ako maubos sa pandemya na to.
Right. I think acceptance has a lot to do with it, radical acceptance, that we are repatterning, and it's really, it's kind of this major evolution in our planet and our world.
Did you say repatterning?
Yes, repatterning.
What does that mean?
We can no longer hold on to the old normal and expect that it's a matter of coming back to that old normal and then things will just move forward from there. It cannot be. I mean, it's impossible to go back to the old normal. I feel like the whole planet is repatterning in the sense that, because we know that COVID is here to stay, we have to come up with new ways of coping with it, of living with it. Many countries are reopening without totally eradicating COVID because life also has to go on. We also need to transition. We're constantly adapting to it. But and it's not necessarily a bad thing because evolution always has something good to offer.
That's so powerful. Evolution always has something good to offer. I will hold on to that. Definitely. Oh my. I'm also guilty of that because I remember that last year when I would do a lot of interviews for work with artists, with actors, a question that I always find on my script to ask them is that, what is the first thing that you'll do when this pandemic is over? over? And there was a point that I stopped asking that. It was always on the script, but I would stop asking it because parang feeling ko, I'm cheating myself if that's the way I'm thinking. Na parang, when this is over, I'll travel here. Like we mentioned, we don't exactly know when that will be. And it feels more like, you're right, it's a slow burn into learning how to live with it, which is what happened 100 years ago with the Spanish flu. It never really went away, but everyone learned how to adapt to it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the talk about mental health and well-being, which you've also been, been actively fostering, Bianca, is one of the, I think, the good parts of this evolution, that people are becoming more conscious about their mental health and their well-being, because we need that immunity in order to go through a difficult or challenging transition like what we're going through now.
Yeah, so powerful. You're exactly right in that. I think prior to all of this happening, it was really physical health above all. But the past year, almost 2 years, it has really been an awakening na at par ang mental health and physical health, which is so important. That's why thank you for squeezing me into your schedule full of consults. I guess I wanted to end this with exactly that, like with the many stories that you've heard with all of your clients. Paano nga ba tayo hindi mauubos in the months and years to come?
I go back to pausing. I think when people take time to pay attention to their inner game, we will get better at our outer game. So the inner game is, validating our internal experience, validating our need for self-care, validating our need to take care of ourselves and our relationships. That's the foundation of our well-being. And it's our well-being that will allow us to meet the challenge without depleting ourselves. So it's recognizing our constant need for restoration and renewal. It's ongoing work. It's a practice. Life is a practice.
Oh, ang ganda nun. Life is a practice. And I think the more that we incorporate pausing into our daily lives, it will come more naturally. Would that be correct to say?
That's right, Bianca. A way of pausing that I've come to appreciate is this practice called glimmer. Glimmer, and it's just micro moments. It's a practice that's taught by Deb Dana. She's a mental health clinician also, who works a lot with the nervous system. And micro moments of enjoyment, pleasure, aliveness can be very powerful. So if we pay attention to those micro moments of aliveness and joy, and try to stay with it for a little bit, turning the glimmer into glow, those moments can be powerful in recharging our nervous systems, our minds, our capacity to show up for life.
I love that. That's so simple but beautiful. And when you were saying that kanina, nag-flash sa utak ko my glimmer moments today.
Yeah.
I can't believe it has a term. Tuwan-tuwa ako. But kanina, I was here on my work from home desk. I was so hungry. Humingi ako ng peanut butter sandwich. And when I bit into it, that first bite, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Grabe yun. And parang I just paused to enjoy that bite. I guess that's glimmer. Or even like, I remember this morning, waking up, kulang ako sa tulog, so I felt really groggy. But I was sitting on the sofa and just watching my 2 daughters play and dance. Parang I just breathed it in, took mental pictures, and that felt like glimmer.
Exactly. Those are very good examples of glimmers, really micro moments. Sometimes just looking out the window and you just notice, oh, that tree is so nice, and it feels soothing to look at it. That moment can be a glimmer.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Doc Jabi. Always, always, always in awe hearing everything you have to say. Maraming salamat. And I'm wishing you, me, and everyone listening to this or watching to this na laban, hindi tayo magpapaubos in the months and the years to come. Thank you so much, Doc.
You're very welcome. I love this chat.
Thank you for joining me for this episode. I would love to hear more from you. I would love to hear your stories. Please join our private Facebook group, the Paano Ba To Kumustahan group. And if you would like to listen to the podcast, if you prefer audio form while doing chores, when you're about to go to sleep, when you're in transit, You can follow Paano Ba To the podcast exclusively on Spotify. All these episodes are on the podcast, plus more episodes. And till our next episode here on YouTube, stay safe and stay well, supers!